So why does IAS 23 exist? The question is whether you should capitalize interest or whether you should not capitalize interest, right? So let's now have a look at a very basic high-level intro to the theory behind IAS 23. So let's say your business now wants to construct a building or other type of qualifying asset. What are you going to do? You are going to need money, right, in order to complete this building. So through this process, you go to the bank to get a loan. And when you get this loan from the bank, you reach an agreement with the bank and they give you money and charge you interest. So after you get the money, you take that money and you go start incurring costs with the construction. And that'll start with architect fees, your quantity surveyor. Then you will move into the real building, which will take direct materials such as brick and cement. You will also need labor, salaries will be incurred for that labor, and then you may have contractors that you use. You may also already have a lot of your own machines, such as your own cranes, trucks, etc., which you will then put to work building your building. And therefore you'll have depreciation on your own machines, and if you don't use your own machines, you will rent other parties' machines. Where would a bookkeeper start? Your bookkeeper is going to pass the initial journal, debiting inventories, salaries, contractors, machinery rental, and then debiting depreciation expense. They will then pay for inventory, salaries, contractors by crediting bank or crediting creditors, as well as for the machines that are being used that you own. You've debited depreciation, you will therefore need to credit accumulated depreciation. But we know from there that the accountant at the end of the month or end of the reporting period will then credit inventory, salaries, contractors, machinery rental, and depreciation expense, and capitalize all of those expenses to the actual cost of the building. It's different compared to when you purchase a building, right? Here you're building your own building and undergoing costs that shouldn't be sitting in profit or loss. They should be sitting in the cost of the asset. So this is what your PPE note would look like. Just worry about buildings. You'll have your carrying amount at the beginning of the year for buildings being 0. You'll have additions, depreciation, carrying amount at the end of the year. The question is the addition all the costs incurred to bring the asset to the location and condition necessary to be used? Does it have all the items that should be classified? That's the question you've got to ask yourself. Just take a step back. How did you pay for all this building? Okay, the costs for the salaries, the bricks, etc. Remember the bank loan and the interest? Well, from that, you would have thought as a bookkeeper, you would have expensed all the interest expense, right? But if you ask yourself, what did the bookkeeper do? They would have gone debit finance costs, interest expense, credit bank or interest accrual in the balance sheet. But what about the interest that was incurred to build the building, right? The building, assuming it's a qualifying asset in terms of IAS 23, which means a building that takes a substantial time to complete. Therefore, you should also capitalize the interest to the cost of the building. So our interest expense should not be as large as it is. We should take that interest, credit it to profit or loss, make the interest expense smaller, and debit that interest to the cost of the building, capitalize it. And your PPE note then won't just be made up of additions being direct costs, but it'll be direct costs plus your borrowing costs. Now that's quite important. Okay, so from there, you will now have a cost that more faithfully represents the future benefits that will be earned from this assets. And it'll bring together all the costs that were incurred to bring the asset to the location and condition necessary for the use of that asset, right? Now, why does IAS 23 exist? Well, there's lots of different intricacies about the capitalization of borrowing costs. So IAS 23 will bring in a common set of standards in order to make sure this is done consistently across different companies, different industries, and over the different years. Okay, so the principle is we want to capitalize borrowing costs to better represent the future benefits that we recognize today as the carrying amount of the asset. We must, however, make sure it's done consistently across years, across companies, and across industries. Hence, the development of International Accounting Standard 23. Let's now go and do some work on the theory behind the standard. Thank you.